Welcome everyone. How's it going? Happy Wednesday. My name is Carrie McGinn. I'm going to be bringing you Letting Your Voice Shine today. I will ask, there will be space for questions at the end of our time together today. So I just ask that you hold them off to the end and we will get them to you. Alrighty, let me share my screen and we'll get this going. Alrighty, once again, like I said, welcome. I'm here on behalf of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health Plan. My name is Carrie McGinn. I am a physical therapist and a yoga instructor in the Boston area. And we're talking about letting your voice shine today. So, just a little bit about what to expect from our time together here. We're going to do a little bit of reflection and talk a lot about what's holding you back from letting your voice shine, some tips to get out your thoughts more clearly and learn how to speak up for yourselves, and some of my favorite ways to assert yourself. There's going to be some really practical tools here, and we're going to dive into a little bit of the neuroscience as to why this is so hard. And there's going to be plenty of journal prompts that you can take with you to just reflect and continue this process of showing up as you are. One thing I will say, if you have a notebook or a phone nearby and you want to do a little reflecting in action here while we're going along, it's more than welcome. That can be a really fun way to kind of take really practical bits away from today. So let's start with that reflection. And you can just think about these in your head as well. But let's talk a little bit about what's holding you back from really letting your voice shine, from speaking up, from asserting yourself. And it might be different in every situation. So this is going to be a bit of a multifactorial reflection, and you might come back to it after this as well. So thinking about, in what situations do you feel like your voice is stifled? Is there a certain personal situation, professional situation? Are there certain people, places, things that kind of make you feel stifled? Are there other situations in which that you feel free to embrace your authentic self, to speak your truth? Once again, maybe people, places, things. Start to just reflect, like where you feel comfortable and where you might not. Are there certain people that hold you back from expressing your true self? Is there Are there people that you feel like you have to hide your true self from, or hide your true message from? And then where do you feel most confident? Where do you feel least confident? Because sometimes it does come down. It's not all about confidence, because confidence can be fleeting, but sometimes it is about confidence, and being able to harness your confidence can be really powerful. And then thinking about, so just take a moment. I want you to take about 30 seconds to just reflect on these questions. And maybe you jot a couple notes down, maybe you just write it out on a piece of paper, maybe you just think it in your head for a moment. But what people, places, situations are holding you back, or people, places, and situations are helping you be your authentic self, helping you be more confident? We'll just take another moment here to kind of think through that. Beautiful. And then reflecting maybe on a certain situation next. So, was there a time when you feel like you left something unsaid? Do you remember a time where you wish you shared your thoughts, your ideas, but then you didn't? And if you have that memory, how did it make you feel? What happened that caused you to not share? What happened after? What happened before? Kind of just reflecting on the situation in general. And just in general, is there something you wish you shared with someone? So noticing what holds you back, what makes you feel confident, and also just having a really tangible experience to reflect on, of maybe a time where you didn't say something that you wanted to. So we'll take like 15 more seconds just to reflect, kind of dig deep into our memories, and just think on that. Because I want you to keep that situation in your brain and these kind of feelings in your brain as we dive into the next piece, which we'll talk all about kind of why you might be feeling held back. So some reasons why you might not be letting your voice shine, there's a couple different reasons. And you might resonate with some of these, you might not. You might find that in certain situations it's one thing, and in other personal situations it might be fear, and other professional situations it might just be concern. So a lot of times fear is a big reason that people don't let their voice shine. They don't speak up for themselves. This can be fear of judgment, fear of embarrassment, fear of disappointing someone. Social threat is another reason that people might not speak up. And we're going to dive into this in the next slide and talk a little bit about neuroscience, which is like my favorite thing to talk about right now. Childhood experiences play a huge role in not speaking up or inserting yourselves. Maybe you've been ridiculed in the past as a child, yelled at, or even in more, severe situations, abused for speaking up. Past traumatic experience when speaking up, if you froze on stage, if something happened, if it wasn't just in general wasn't a good experience. It doesn't Traumatic doesn't necessarily mean, really traumatic. It can be a small trauma. Fear of retaliation, so fear that if you say something that someone else disagrees with, that they might try to get back at you in some way, shape, or form. Concern for what others think, coworkers, colleagues, friends, family members. And gender differences play a huge role. In general, women are socialized to be less assertive than men. So all these different things can play a huge role in why we might not be speaking up and why we might not be letting our voice be heard. So I want to talk a little bit about the role of social threat and what that really means, because this is a real tangible physiological thing that happens sometimes when we're trying to speak up for ourselves and assert ourselves. So something that's really important to know about our human bodies is that our nervous system always wants to keep us safe. I joke a lot that the nervous system is queen. If the queen is happy, then everything's happy. But in a really real sense, our nervous system's sole job is to keep us alive and to keep us safe. Back with our ancestors who were hunter gatherers, this looked a lot different than it did now, but the system is still the same. Our brains now can't differentiate emotional danger from physical danger. So our brains can't say, oh, this is a saber-toothed tiger versus someone telling you we need to talk, or saber-toothed tiger versus big presentation at work where you need to assert yourself. Those experiences, the tiger and the big presentation, feel physiologically the same to your nervous system. So that can be really challenging. We can have a increase in this sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight, flight, or freeze, when we go to speak up and assert ourselves. And I want to tell you that if you ever had kind of your heart race or felt a little jittery or nervous before asserting yourself or speaking up, this is a physiological reaction that's happening, and it's very normal, and it's a very important way that our body takes care of ourselves. And social threat really is choosing between being accepted by our peers and what we personally find acceptable but unacceptable, what we personally want to say. And it goes back to our ancestors once again as well. If our ancestors, they used to be hunter gatherers, they lived in very community based living, upset the group, it would affect their survival. So it was very much against your best interest to speak up and assert yourself. So sometimes speaking up can feel like a real threat to our survival as community based beings. Now, you're not going to be kind of kicked out of the tribe for speaking your mind, but that doesn't mean it might not feel that way. And that's the important part. So sometimes the feelings kind of supersede the situation, and we'll talk about really tangible ways to help with that. So, what is speaking up? Speaking up is when you communicate publicly, assertively, and honestly for the rights and needs of yourself and others. So, this can really span a wide variety of situations and things you might want to say. Once again, this can be in your personal life, your professional life. This can be in person, via Zoom, via text message, email, a lot of different ways. So, while we kind of think about speaking up, I want you to start percolating on what it is you might want to be saying or asserting yourself about. And we're going to come back to this. We're not going to spend a lot of time here right this moment. But what are you holding back from sharing, from asserting, from speaking up? And just to kind of reflect on that, and this is something I definitely recommend taking a picture of and maybe returning to at another time or time again. And I'll flash it on the screen at the end as well. But what is something you've always wanted to share with the world or with your partner or your family or your colleagues? What is a message or a thought that is near and dear to your heart? What is something you want to shout from the rooftops? What is something you have been dying to tell anyone that will listen, but you might be a little too afraid to? And what are you currently most passionate about? We'll come back to this, but just kind of start to get the wheels turning and the juices flowing here. So, when it comes to speaking up, we're going to break it down kind of bit by bit. First and foremost, let's talk about when is the right time to speak up. And unfortunately, I have no right answer for you, besides it depends. There's a couple different scenarios when research shows that it is really important to us as humans to speak up. Times like when you notice someone else is upset, because sometimes speaking on behalf of someone else or another group of humans is easier and more comfortable to start with than speaking up for yourself. Other times when something goes against the rules of the workplace, the household, the situation, when you feel like a situation is being handled unfairly or against the well-placed rules. When it sets a dangerous precedent. So this might be someone violating your boundaries or not listening to you. When unethical concerns come up or something that you personally don't feel is moral or ethical. When you hold a leadership position, it can be really important to speak up and to share your thoughts, especially when you're speaking up for others that might not be holding leadership positions, showing up for your team. Sometimes when no one else speaks up, it's the best time for you to speak up. Maybe other people are scared of sharing their thoughts and ideas, and it's time for you to. And then last but not least, when it's all you can think about, when you keep getting these pings from your mind, from the universe, from whoever you want it to be from, this inner voice keeps knocking at your door. Hey, you want to share that? Hey, you should really speak up about that. And that just requires to start to listen to that inner voice and just notice what it's saying sometimes. So, how to start speaking up? Start here. You're going to start with asking yourself, when do I need to speak up? Is there something I'm avoiding? And then when you have a thought that you might want to share, does this feel right to me? What am I afraid of? And then taking that piece of what am I afraid of and kind of spinning, is that really going to happen? I'm afraid that everyone's going to judge me. Do I know that to be true? Do I know for a fact that everyone's going to judge me if I speak my mind? More often than not, the answer is probably going to be no. And then it comes to noticing your feeling. So getting in tune with the physical and emotional sensations that either indicate you want to speak up or that prevent you from speaking up is really powerful. For some, this is a pit in their stomach or butterflies, a lump in your throat, a constriction of your chest. Starting to practice just noticing that feeling for what it is and letting it be a part of the process. So another really powerful thing that you can do here is notice the feeling and almost kind of talk to it. So like I said earlier, sometimes these feelings, this gut feeling, this lump in your throat, the constricted chest, that's our body trying to keep us safe. It's trying to kind of tighten our muscles to prepare us for fight, flight, and freeze. And yes, if we're running for a saber-toothed tiger, we might want to do those things. But if we're trying to give a big presentation at work and really speak our mind about a new project coming up, they might not be so useful. So something that I'll do sometimes is say, okay, I hear you, body. I feel that lump in my throat. I feel that pit in my stomach. Thank you for keeping me safe, but I still want to show up. I still want to speak my mind here. Can you work with me? And then usually what I do, because it does always come back to breath, is take 3 clearing breaths in and out through my nose and then focus on lengthening my exhale. So let's do it together. We're going to take a deep breath in through your nose. Open mouth. Another full breath in. Open mouth. Last one, inhale. And exhale. And then on your next inhale, you're going to fill up for 1, 2, 3. And exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can go back to your normal breathing here. What that breathing does is it helps just calm your body from the inside out. So when you notice that feeling, kind of say, hey, I hear you, body. And then you give yourself some tools to slow it down, to kind of get back into a more rested state. And then the next thing that can be really helpful is creating a trigger phrase. So something that preps you to share your mind. For some people, it's, I had a question about that. From my perspective, actually, I was thinking, what if we did this instead? Just a phrase that brings you back to what you want to share. Here are some other really great tips for speaking your truth. These are especially helpful when you're in a one-on-one conversation with someone, but can be used in group settings as well. Number one, prioritize clarity and share with intention. Commit to speaking up for yourself even when it's uncomfortable, but be thoughtful and really clear regarding the purpose. So try your best to get your words out clearly and share your message with clarity. And a huge piece of this is also listening actively. So when you share what you're speaking up about and someone gives you feedback, you can stay in your power and in your truth when you listen actively and you feel really present in the situation. Another huge piece of this is keeping your communication succinct. When you're speaking your truth, when you're sharing your mind, you're not convincing anyone. You're asserting yourself. You're sharing your opinion. It is not your job to convince, and I should say a side note, maybe sometimes it is your job to convince other people, but often enough, the first step isn't convincing other people, it's convincing yourself and asserting for yourself what you want to say before anything else. So keeping your communication clear and succinct. And then communication rather than complaining is huge as well, especially when it comes to maybe sharing something that you might deem, I don't want to say controversial, but not what the other person is considering. Be a problem solver instead of just complaining. Solutions oriented approach is going to help you better assert yourself. And then don't be a bully when it comes to speaking your truth. You're allowed to have your truth and assert yourself, as is everyone else. Don't guilt people into listening to you. It's all about mutual respect. And then at the end of the day, it does come down to practicing. Practice, practice, practice. The more you speak up for yourself, the more you share your mind, the easier it will be. Some other ways to approach speaking up, and especially speaking from your heart. Start with assessing the situation. There might be some times when you feel like your message isn't heard or isn't going to be well received, and you might feel like you will be on the receiving end of bullying. It might be easy, or it might be wise, I should say, to ask yourself, should I speak up or stay silent here? Is this the right time? In terms of, are there a lot of other things going on with the group or the people around me? Is this the right time to address this concern? And also, is there enough time for us to complete this conversation? Is this person in a place where they're ready to listen? I think about this a lot when I'm kind of running between clients and my family members call me and they have to tell me something important. It might not be the best time for me to listen when I'm trying to do a million things at once. Maybe when I'm more settled, more clear, I'll be ready to listen. And then how can you speak up in order to be heard? And then another huge piece of this is knowing your truth. And this takes a little bit of time. Start to pay attention to things that make you resentful or unhappy. Ask yourself why this is happening. Start to notice when you might need to say no. Honor your emotions when they come up and take action to support yourself within these emotions. And ask for help and support when you're unsure. Your voice deserves to be heard, but you need to believe that first before anyone else. It's really hard to stand up for ourselves, to put ourselves out there if we don't believe in our message, if we don't believe in what we're sharing with the world. And I bet if you were on this call here today, that you have something that you want to share with the world, you're just not sure how to. First and foremost, believe in yourself, believe in what you have to say, and believe in your mission. When you believe in yourself, it's a lot easier to get other people to listen to you and to believe in you as well. Some other really kind of quick tips on how to assert yourself. Sometimes it's really helpful to use I statements instead of you statements. I feel this way instead of you make me feel this way. Or I think we should do this instead of we should definitely do this. Use those I statements. Use part of me statements can help if you need to come off as less aggressive. Part of me thinks that we should solve the problem this way, but the other part of me likes your idea when offering a solution that might be a way different from what someone else is offering. Your body language should support your point. So you don't want to come off as aggressive or angry when you're sharing your point. Maybe you do, and then you want your body language to reflect that, but more often than not, I'm going to guess that you want to come off as open and present. Can you look directly into the person's eyes? Uncross your arms, uncross your legs, be fully present in the conversation. Sometimes asking for feedback while after you assert yourself is a great way to just make it a collaborative process. If you feel like someone's not listening to you or you're not getting your point across clearly, it might be helpful to ask clarifying questions as to what the other people missed in the conversation. And remember, you're communicating to understand each other better, not to win an argument. You're not sharing your voice because you're trying to win everything. You're sharing your voice because you want to be heard and you want to be understood. And especially when we're communicating with other people, it's important to remember that they want to be understood and heard as well. When you say no, mean it. That's kind of just a assert yourself 101. Remembering that you are responsible for your own behavior and your own behavior only. You can, if you share your thoughts in a kind and compassionate and open way, you are doing the best that you can. If someone does not receive that well, that is not your fault, that is theirs. You can I don't want to say change, but you can present yourself when you're sharing your story a certain way. And if someone reacts negatively, that is not necessarily your fault. Similar to saying no and mean it, kind of asserting yourself with a lot of this is setting your boundaries and sticking to them. I'm sorry, this is what I believe, or I'm sorry, this is what I want to do for myself. End of story. Apologies are okay when you want to assert yourself, but only if you really want to, if you feel like it's warranted. When asserting yourself and sharing your opinion, don't over apologize. A really useful thing that I will do here is instead of saying I'm sorry, use thank you. So instead of saying I'm sorry I'm running late, thank you for understanding my delay. Or I'm sorry I didn't get to that. Thank you for understanding I need a little bit more time. Or instead of saying, I'm sorry that you don't like my opinion or you don't like that idea, thank you for taking into consideration. There's lots of ways to turn I'm sorry into thank you. And then before anything else, when asserting yourself, you want to center yourself. So you want to take a moment to take those couple of deep breaths, to slow down so you're not bopping all over the place, moving a mile a minute. Here's another really great acronym that you can use when trying to assert yourself clearly. And I'll be honest, I did not make this up. This is something I found in my research. So a really great way to clearly get your point across when you're trying to talk to someone else is to use the acronym DEAR. Describe, express, assert, reinforce. So describe the situation to the person, focusing on just the facts. This helps the other person in the situation kind of orient to where you are and gets you both on the same page. Then express your opinion or how you feel about the situation. Use those statements again. A good example of this is, say someone is consistently showing up late for an appointment with you. You kind of say, hey, you're running about 20 minutes late here. Did you know that? I've been waiting here for you. And then express how it makes you feel. When you consistently run late for every appointment we have, it makes me feel like you don't appreciate my time and that you don't care about what I have to do. And then assert yourself. Be clear on what you need in the situation. State your request or refusal clearly and directly. Hey, in terms of the running late, hey, I understand that things come up and life happens. If you're running late, can you just let me know or reschedule? I'd really appreciate that. And then reinforce. Explain the positive effects of getting what you want. When you're able to text me and tell you you're running late, then I don't worry. Then I can work on some other things while I'm waiting for you. When you reschedule because you're busy, it frees up my time too and puts a lot less stress on both of us. So using this kind of step-by-step process can be a really great way, especially when you're having to give feedback to someone else. So dear, describe, express, assert, reinforce. So let's loop back to that what. What is something you've always wanted to share with the world? And I, once again, encourage you to take a screenshot of this to write some of these questions down. So start thinking about what it is you might be holding back from and what you need to share and get off your chest. So these are questions that I recommend revisiting anytime you feel like you have something to share, but you just quite can't get the words out. And then some other things that can be really helpful when it comes to asserting yourself is writing down to get clear. Writing helps us get more in tune with our inner thoughts, and it can be a really great way to work through something, especially if it's a situation that holds a lot of emotion. So first, say you're in a situation where you're angry about something or upset or any emotion. Privately write out all your emotions, feelings, thoughts about a certain situation or experience in private, in a notebook, let it all out. Don't hold back. Let it be an unedited version. Get all the frustrations, everything out on paper. Then write down your main points in maybe a kinder, less emotional way. Once again, this can be a little lengthy at first. And then from that, write down 3 to 5 key points you want to bring with you. You can bring these with you to a conversation. I've done it a lot of times when talking to people that I might be intimidated by or I might be afraid to speak up. When I have those few points, it just helps me be more clear and more focused on what I'm actually there to do instead of getting mixed up in just the emotion of it. Having clear points will also allow you to hit on everything you want to hit on and leave the conversation feeling complete and not walking out of a conversation or a meeting going, shoot, I wish I said XYZ. Last but not least, here are just some more journal prompts to kind of get the juices flowing if you feel like there's stuff you want to talk about, but you're not sure how to go about it. So feel free to screenshot this, like I said, write some of these down, really get into what you want to share with the world and why you might be holding yourself back. I'll leave this up for just a couple of seconds here while I finish up. But really, when it comes down to letting your voice shine, I'd say a couple of things that you are absolutely necessary. One, you got to believe in what you're saying and you got to believe in yourself. Two, you got to reflect and be in the and be aware of what it is you really want to say. And three, be present. The more you're present and the more you're aware, the more you're able to assert yourself in a healthy way. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Carrie McGinn. I'm going to open up the floor for the last minute or two for a couple of questions. Feel free to pop them in the chats or the Q&A if you have any questions whatsoever. Thank you for joining me once again. So there will be a recording of this, or is that the information you're asking for? Thank you all so much for joining me.